Now let's come to the causal research. Okay, so the third type of research, which is research design, which is causal research. In a causal research, the variables are known. What I'm trying to establish is I'm trying to establish a cause effect relationship. Okay, what I'm trying to establish is that I know a few variables, say 2 variables or 3 variables or 5 variables, and I am trying to establish a cause effect relationship between either 2 variables or among all 4 variables, okay, or 2 variables and a moderator, 2 variables and a mediator. These are the general causal research terms which are used. It is generally, what do we mean by causal research is generally done through experimentation. So a causal research is when I have an experimentation of 2 groups. So I have to take 2 groups, I have to give them one variable, okay, and I have to see whether the variable has an impact or an effect or an influence on them or not. Okay, having said that, whenever I list the research objective of a causal research, okay, so if my research design is going to be a causal research design, it has to be planned beforehand. So if my research design is causal research design, and I know that I am going to do a cause effect relationship between these 2 variables, my research objective will also say so. So in chapter number 1, when we set up a research objective, we will have to say that I am studying the impact of cigarettes on lung cancer. Okay, so I'll have to give this statement in the research objective. Also, even in this research, this is also a conclusive research. Descriptive was conclusive, causal is conclusive. Even in this research, we use statistical tools, but the statistical tools are a little different. For example, correlation and chi-square and regression. These are the tools we use in causal research. Further, when we are trying to study the cause effect between 2 factors. Okay, so if I am trying to study the impact of attitude on intention, therapy on depression, GDP on FDI of a country, I'm giving you all subject examples, impact of COVID vaccine on an Indian, the impact of a chemical, okay, on a particular organism. All these are cause effect relationships. They could be established through experimentation, okay, and they could also be established through in social sciences. We use correlations, regressions. Further, when we have to see the relationship between 3-4 factors together, we get into structural equational modeling, okay, SEM. And nowadays what is happening new is that there is inferential SEM. So we are not only going to use quantitative, we use mixed methods. Okay, so in this causal research, it will primarily be, of course, causal or quantitative or the way it is, but a part of it becomes qualitative. Okay, so embedded part, I mean the qualitative part is small, quantitative part is big. Thus overall it's a causal research, but a part of qualitative is there, thus it becomes mixed research. So either you could do exclusively causal, or you could do a mixed research also if you have a causal design. So it's very clear, it's a cause and effect relationship. It is an experimentation of 2 groups. For example, cigarette causes lung cancer. Now which will the 2 groups be over here? The 2 groups over here that we take in causal research, and I think the science participants from the science background will relate more to this, because experimentation is something and causality is something that is the major domain of their study. Okay, in social science also we are using it for many types of variables. We use it in economics, political science, sociology, psychology, commerce, marketing, human research, finance, economics, political science. In every field, we are using causal research. This is the most famous type of research design that is being studied nowadays. So, most of the research papers that you see nowadays are either exploratory, okay, so qualitative research has come up in a very big way now, and or they are causal. So most of the papers that you see in social sciences, in my domain, that I see are working on structural equational modeling, and that is the reason. If you remember, I told you that the PhD student comes to me and says that forget the research objective, forget the topic, just give me something in which I can do structural equational modeling. So he comes to us because of this fame of this technique of causal research. If I'm doing, suppose I'm giving you an example, if the research is on cigarettes and impact on lung cancer, what will be my two experimental group? My one group will be what I call the control group, and here they will not have an intake of cigarettes. So the non-cigarette smokers become my control group. What is a control group? Control group is the group to whom I don't introduce this variable, whose cause I'm studying. Whose cause am I studying over here? I'm studying the cause of cigarettes on lung cancer. People could have lung cancer otherwise also. It's not necessary that it will happen through cigarettes, but my study says I want to study the impact of cigarettes on lung cancer. So I will have a set of people who will be called a control group, to whom I will not introduce with this variable cigarettes, and I will see how many lung cancer cases are there from among them. Then I'll have a second group which is called an experimental group. To this group, to this set of people, and again in causal research also, we have a very huge sample, so somewhere around 500,000, very huge sample, because this is also conclusive research and I have to generalize the findings. So yes, this also has a very huge sample size. So my second group will be the experimental group, where I introduce that group to cigarettes and I see how much of lung cancer is caused. I will compare the event of lung cancer in both the groups, and then finally conclude that the group which was intaking cigarette had more cases of lung cancer. Thus, the hypothesis, even in causal research, I told you there has to be a hypothesis. Thus, the hypothesis that cigarette causes lung cancer stands true, stands accepted. So this is the whole process of a causal research. You could do it in your domains also. For example, I was studying this one research in economics, where they said that knowledge about a country, okay, how well you know about the country, and the FDI are related. So when you're getting into an international company, the knowledge you have about the business of that company and the foreign direct investment, they are both related. Okay, so this is a causal research from the economics domain. In sciences, of course, it's experimentation is the research design in sciences, and in social sciences, or in commerce, in arts, in psychology, also we are trying to, and primarily we are using in social sciences, we are using to study behavior. Okay, so in marketing we are saying that the attitude of a person has an impact on purchase intention. In psychology we are trying to study if therapy has an impact on stress. We are also trying to study if yoga has an impact on stress. So these are the psychological causal research. So I've just given you an example from different domains so that you can relate. Okay. This is a very simple example of causal research. So there was a research where the distraction caused, and the while giving a paper, so while you're given in an examination, the distracting sounds, can they have an impact on your scores? So this is a research which wanted to find that out. So for doing so, what it did is it set up a control group where they silently gave their paper of 3 hours. The students gave a examination of 3 hours. Vis-a-vis that, they had an experimental group where the students did give their paper but with a lot of noise distraction, and the scores of these two groups, so 500 control students, 500 experimental students, their average marks were compared. A hypothesis was set that the distracting sounds will impact the score of students. And let me also tell you how you set this hypothesis. It is not that I set it on the basis of my feeling. Okay, so this is a very big problem that comes up with researchers. They go by feeling. I think, if the students are distracted with sound, their performance will decrease. You don't go by your thinking in causal research design. When you set a hypothesis in causal research design, you go by past review of literature. So setting a hypothesis for a causal research is not that easy. You cannot just feel and say, okay, I think this will impact this. Because the research is full of papers where sometimes that causality that you have taken between two variables is proven true, and sometimes that causality has been proven false. So if you are hypothesizing that this causality is true, you will have to support it with at least 4 authors from past literature review who say that yes, the causality between these two is positive. If you say there is no causality, you will have to support it with 4 author papers where they say yes, this causality is not true. So that has to be done. Okay, so you can't go by feel. So many a times in my marketing domain also, I'm just giving you these examples so that you know where you go right and wrong. And these examples are not written in books. They are not there in Malhotras, they are not there in Kotaris, they are not there in Saunders and Lewis. This comes through practical experience, and that is what I'm sharing with you. So most of my students, I'm into a management institute, so most of them work on social media. They say, okay, social media, ma'am, will impact the sales. And I always give them this one notion. I say, says who? So then they say, ma'am, I have a feeling. Ma'am, it's obvious. Ma'am, this happens. I mean, it is known. They give me all sorts of sentences. But what I tell them is, don't give me these justifications. Don't give me these feelings. Don't tell me it happens. Don't tell me it is evident that it happens. Don't give me these statements. Just go back to research, search 4 authors who say this happens, and only then will I believe you. So that is all you have to do in a causal research when you're doing your PhD or when you're writing a research paper. Nowadays, what people are doing is they are finding out relationships between 2 weird variables. So in my domain, it is very, very common to work on, and that is what is the gap of the research also. So in my domain, attitude impacting purchase intention, motivation impacting purchase intention, personality impacting purchase intention. This has become very common. So when I have to write a research paper, I have to find out something new. So there is a research paper which I'm doing where I'm trying to find out if factors of storytelling impact the purchase intention. And the factors of storytelling that I'm studying is fun in storytelling, impact. There's another paper where I'm doing a causality of gamification, the game apps that brands have. Okay, I'm trying to see if they have an impact on purchase intention. So then there are factors in gamification. For example, in gamification, there are factors like, again, there's fun in gamification also. There are reward points in gamification. The attention span of gamification, the dynamics of a game, the mechanics of a game, the aesthetics of a game, and how they impact purchase intention. So nowadays when you see research papers and you see good research papers, and this is my advice to any PhD student on board also, please don't take common variables for causal research design. Take up something which is new. So lately I came across a variable where they said tight word impacts control in a consumer. These are very different variables. Okay, self-control in consumers and tight word. Okay, so the moment you see the variable, there are other variables like frugality and self-control in a consumer, right? So don't take the common causal variables. They're going to lead you nowhere. There are thousands of paper written on attitude and purchase intention. It's going to take you nowhere. The latest A grade paper that you see in reputed journals, when you read that model, it takes you time, because you have to go back and see what does this variable mean, because that variable is so bizarre and so new. And because it is bizarre and because it is new, the causality has never been studied. And because it is bizarre and new and the causality has never been studied, this becomes your research gap. And you have to, before doing a PhD, before even selecting a research design, you have to find out a research gap. These things are secondary. What will be the research design? What will be the data collection? That is secondary. You have to first find out a gap. And if your research is repetitive, that is what PhD students or even researchers, we all like to go the easy way. We like to see the papers we are getting. If we are getting too many papers, well and good, take that topic. No, we shouldn't be doing that. We have to search a variable so that somebody, when he sees our research, he should, actually feel like an illiterate. He should feel that, okay, this variable, oh my God, is there a variable called tight word? Is there a variable called frugality? Is there a variable called aesthetics in game, mechanics in game, dynamics in game? So you have to, initially they used to say that you make things simple for people, but in research, if the editor the journal editor of an A-grade journal finds out that your variables are too simple, he's going to reject the paper. So we better, and that is research, if so many people have studied the cause effect of attitude and intention, what new are you giving? You're giving nothing new. So that is about causal research design and how you apply it. The causal research design might not be done only in a bivariate form. What do you mean by bivariate? Between two variables. You could do it in a multivariate form also. For example, just look at the methods of, if the research objective is to study the impact of factors reducing stress. Now this becomes a multivariate causal analysis. Okay, so why multivariate? Because I am seeing the impact of exercise on stress, sleeping on stress, listening to music on stress, meditation on stress, playing with a pet on stress. So I'm seeing the impact of 5 variables on stress. Thus, it becomes a multivariate study. A few of these variables in causal research might not be direct variables. I could be taking them as moderators or mediators. Okay, so when you get into a little more complicated statistical analysis, you will find out that maybe sleeping has a direct impact on stress, but music while sleeping could affect the direct relationship of sleeping and stress. Thus, music becomes a moderator, okay, or a mediator. So you could find the direct impact of all these 5 variables on stress. You could find the mediation or moderation impact of these variables on stress. But whatever you find out in causal research should not have been done previously. Only then does a paper get published, and only then do I find value in a PhD research. Or else, if you're doing something which is already done, for that matter, if I take these 5 variables, it is already established that exercise impacts stress, okay, and that too negatively. So the more the exercise, the lesser the stress. It is known that mediation impacts stress. It is known that music and sleeping, but playing with the pet, does it impact stress? And if there is a causal relationship between this, there could be further managerial implication. We always finish the paper with a managerial implication. And the managerial implication over here would be that the sale of pets would increase. If I come out with a research saying that playing with a pet reduces your stress, and I can prove it through statistical data of 500 to 1000 consumers, then definitely the managerial implication of a causal research design would be that people should start buying pets. People who are stressed, people who are in 9 to 9 jobs, people who are in the manufacturing industry, it's a very high stress level job. They should have a pet at home compulsorily, so the sale of pets will increase. Okay, similarly, if my causal research says that music impacts stress, the sale of music CDs will increase. So when you have any research, be it exploratory research design, be it descriptive research design, be it causal research design, whichever research design you have, and it shows an impact on, say, stress. I'm just giving an example. It gives an impact on, say, stress. After you find a causality, positive or negative, your hypothesis is supported or your hypothesis is rejected, whatever the case might be, you will have to write the managerial implication of this. Research is not just done for the heck of it. You have to give a managerial implication for this. So this is about causal research. This is an example of a research paper where causal research has been done.